all my fans out there. I see you there, Russell. This is the first process video I have ever done for my work, so I hope you'll forgive me if it's a bit clumsy. My natural tools are an ancient copy of Photoshop and a Wacom tablet with a digitizing stylus. And I have used them for years. It actually took me years to get used to them, having drawn for decades with pencils and pens, which I was quite good at. But these days it's all digital. I like to start out with a nice big file, 5000 DPU. My CPU can actually handle it these days. When I first started out, 10, 15 years ago, the CPU was so weak that a 900 by 600 image still had the jaggies, and I often had to wait a half a second for a stroke made with the Wacom tablet to actually fill in, and you can imagine how difficult that was to draw that way. But now my current CPU is entirely capable of handling the load, almost any speed that I draw. As you can see, like most artists, I start out with a sketchy skeleton of what it is I want, and I draw in various lines until I find the line that I want, and then I can use the eraser to clean them up. And as you can see, I've got the gesture, and I've got most of the proportions of my character. This is the Tin Man. He's a lucky guy. He gets his head blown off at some point in the story, but he no longer keeps his brain in his head, so it slows him down, but it doesn't really put him out of the fight. Now, I could, and sometimes I do, record characters from Second Life, which is kind of nice because I can choose a background, I can decide the movement if I want them to walk over somewhere or something like that, and I can fix up their costume. I can decide what costume I want. And of course, I can get any character, male or female, alien, robot, whatever, depending on what the story demands. But for the most part, I like to draw my own. I always have, ever since I was a little chitlin. And that's really the most fun. I can say that doing things in a computer with a Wacom tablet, which is absolutely necessary if you want to be an illustrator, is 100 times easier than working with paper and canvas, which I did for many years. You acquire many skills, and one of the things I've discovered in illustration is that they keep improving the tools. The Wacom tablet, the computer itself, which has color control, down to the absolute millimeter. You can draw it any size, you can reduce it, you can enlarge it, you can delete portions of it. Very convenient. I used to erase paper illustrations to the point where I went right through the paper, which is always inconvenient. You wind up replacing a piece of paper inside the drawing, and then after you photograph it for the print version, you find yourself taking out the cut lines. Truth is, I have acquired many skills over a long career, which basically obsolesced after a few years. I forget the exact name of it. It was something like the XPX 8000 or something like that. I became an expert at using one of the first one of the first photocopy typesetting, computerized typesetting machines. It cost $20,000, and it was as large as two large refrigerators sitting on the floor. And it was a huge thing over the way we used to set type previous to that. But it was only useful for about 5 years, and they put it right into computers, and now you can use your computer to design a printing plate, and the device will just run out a printing plate which you can attach to your press and put right to print. And all that darkroom equipment, all the skills required in assembling printing plates and so forth, no longer necessary. Unless you're printing in Uganda somewhere where they don't have the technology. Okay, I've found the character, and now I'm giving him the main outline. And there's always, with my characters, they have the black outline. You'll find that painters and most illustrators don't use the black outline. That's the thing that happens with cartooning and animation. It makes the character clearer against the background. Quite often there's a problem in that the complexity of your detail gets to the point where it's difficult to discern what the character is doing against the background. I'm careful to make sure my characters pop. Which is to say, they have a nice solid color, they have a good solid form, it's very well determined, and you can see them against a complex background. And you can see their expressions. The trick is really expressive characters. People want to see the emotions. This guy's very expressive. He's a bit of a hero. You may determine from my writing that I have a certain understanding of heroic characters. In one sense or another, we are all heroic characters. We'd all like to save the town from destruction and be rewarded for it. We often get things wrong, however, and save the wrong town or whatever. And this is what I've noticed about superheroes. They'll go through some huge battle. They'll get shot several times in sensitive spots, which they don't seem to notice much. And they're always ready for the next adventure. They don't actually have lives. They don't develop. They don't grow. Although comic books have done much better writing since my time in Superman and Green Lantern and the Fantastic Four, which are the comics I grew up with. Does anybody remember Sergeant Fury and his, what were they? Sergeant Fury and his commandos. And they would get a mission and they would burn down the barracks and run out and jump in an airplane and get parachuted into Germany, where they would murder about, I don't know, 15,000 German soldiers or more, usually with gunfire or direct strangulation. So, no, I don't think superheroes have to be particularly believable. After all, they are creatures of fantasy. As you can see, this guy is. He has a metal leg, metal and plastic, which functions about the same as the other leg. I don't think think you'd want to run at 50 miles an hour with just one leg. So they probably balanced them off. I suppose they could replace both legs and then he'd be able to pick up a Volkswagen. But he's not like that. He takes an injury and gets it fixed. He's a citizen of Cedar Grove, where they have a clinic which is famous throughout the metaverse. They can fix things you wouldn't think would be fixable in the human body. And he does quite well. He does get shot, very badly injured, but they basically rebuild him. You can see he has a metal face, a partly metal face and a metal nose. I love that nose. And I do have to say, Photoshop is an absolute magic carpet. I don't like the way they do it now, where you have to get a subscription, and over a year or several years, I've been using this particular copy of Photoshop now for almost 10 years. And I got it from some guy who bought it on a disc, decided he didn't like it, he preferred GIMP or something like that, which is a free program, probably very much equal to Photoshop, but I've learned Photoshop. And as far as doing visual arts are concerned, it's an absolute magic carpet. This is an obsolete copy that I'm using, but I still haven't explored all its potentials, all its filters, all the different brushes it uses. I use like 2 or 3 different brushes. It has hundreds. I can make my own. It's absolutely magic for adding text. Something I used to design typefaces. There's one that's out there that's been used professionally. I forget what it's called, Rebellion or something like that. It had extended serifs. It was beautiful. But it belongs to the world now. And there's one interesting characteristic here. Part of the subject of this process is my integration of AI. I design a character and then I let AI animate them. Now, what I have been doing is animating them with Adobe After Effects, which has fallen behind. There's animation programs now that I could go to, but it gets very tiresome learning new software. You don't actually do any art. You spend all your time learning the new software, and then as soon as you know that, you think you've got it, and you've got muscle memory in it and so forth, there he is. Now you're learning new software.